Marcus Chen sat in the back corner of the Galactic Military Academy's tactical simulation room, his dark eyes quietly observing as his alien classmates struggled with what humans would consider basic battlefield mathematics. The Zephyrian instructor, Commander Veltar, gestured with four arms toward the holographic display showing a standard pincer movement gone wrong. "As you can see," Veltar's translated voice echoed through the chamber, "the Meridian Defense Force attempted to outflank the enemy position, but failed to account for the terrain elevation changes. Cadet Zixnal, what was their primary error?" The insectoid student's mandibles clicked nervously. They moved too fast?" "Incorrect. Cadet Torvin." The massive Gorvakian, easily 3 meters tall with stone-like skin, rumbled his response. "Not enough soldiers?" Marcus resisted the urge to shake his head. The answer was painfully obvious to him. The defenders had failed to account for the 47-degree slope differential that would funnel attackers into a kill zone, turning their flanking maneuver into a death trap. But he said nothing, as he had for the past 6 months since arriving at the Academy. Earth's integration into the Galactic Council had been swift and surprisingly smooth. Humanity was seen as a young, eager species, good with technology, decent fighters, but lacking the tactical sophistication that came with millennia of interstellar warfare. The other species were patient with their new human allies, treating them like enthusiastic children who needed guidance. What they didn't know was that Marcus Chen had spent 8 years as a tactical consultant for Earth's Special Operations Command. At 17, he had designed the strategy that ended the Luna Colony Rebellion in 3 days with minimal casualties. At 21, he had orchestrated the defense of New Singapore Station against a pirate fleet 5 times larger than the defending force. The scars on his hands weren't from accidents. They were from building improvised explosives in trenches while developing real-time battle plans. But here, surrounded by beings who had never known the desperate intensity of human warfare, he was just another cadet. A quiet one. "The correct answer," Veltar continued, "is that they failed to maintain communication between their flanking units. Always remember, coordination is the foundation of successful tactics." Marcus bit his tongue. Communication was important, yes, but meaningless if you were coordinating your way into an ambush. The real issue was the complete lack of terrain analysis and the assumption that alien enemies would think like Meridians. Classic anthropomorphic thinking that got soldiers killed. After class, Marcus gathered his materials and headed toward the exit. The Academy's halls were massive, designed to accommodate the largest species in the Galactic Council. Crystalline Zilithians towered overhead like living sculptures, while the serpentine Ashkari slithered past at waist height. Marcus, at average human height, moved among them like a shadow. "Human Marcus!" a cheerful voice called out. He turned to see Kixara, a Zephyrian with bright blue skin and the personality of an excited puppy. Her species was known for their friendliness and their absolutely terrible strategic thinking. "Did you understand today's lesson? That battle seemed so complicated." Marcus nodded politely. "It was educational." "I know, right? I can't believe how smart those Meridian generals must have been to even attempt something so complex. I would never have thought of trying to attack from 2 directions at once." Inside, Marcus cringed. The Meridian strategy was something human military cadets learned to avoid in their first semester. But Kixara looked so proud of herself for following the basic concept that he just smiled and nodded. "Want to study together later?" she asked hopefully. "You're always so quiet in class, but I bet you have lots of insights." "Thanks, but I have other plans," Marcus replied softly. Kixara's face fell slightly, but she brightened immediately. "Oh, are you meeting with the other humans? I heard there are 3 others in different programs." Actually, Marcus was planning to spend the evening in his room, working through advanced tactical scenarios on his personal tablet. He had downloaded the Academy's entire historical battle database and was systematically analyzing every major conflict of the past 1,000 years. So far, he had found exploitable flaws in the brilliant strategies of every single engagement. The problem wasn't that the aliens were stupid. They were actually quite intelligent in most ways. The issue was that their warfare had evolved along completely different lines than humanity's. Most galactic species had developed spacefaring capability before experiencing large-scale planetary conflicts. Their battles were formal, ritualized affairs with clear rules and expected behaviors. Humans, on the other hand, had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other with whatever was available. They had learned to think like their enemies, to anticipate every possible dirty trick, to turn any situation to their advantage. Human military doctrine wasn't just about winning, it was about winning against opponents who were also trying to win by any means necessary. Marcus made his way to the dormitory section, passing through the common area where students from various species clustered together. The atmosphere was relaxed and social, another thing that would never happen in a human military academy. These aliens treated warfare like an academic subject rather than a life-or-death profession. His room was small but adequate, with a bed sized for human proportions and a desk equipped with standard galactic interfaces. Marcus settled at his workstation and activated his tablet, bringing up the day's tactical scenario for private review. The Meridian defense situation appeared on his screen in full detail. Marcus spent a few minutes studying the terrain, force compositions, and initial positions. Then he began running alternative scenarios. First, the correct human approach. Instead of the failed pincer movement, establish overwatch positions on the elevated terrain, use suppressive fire to fix the enemy in place, then send a small infiltration team to disable their communications. Once they were blind and pinned, a single concentrated assault would overwhelm their position with minimal friendly casualties. Time to completion, 18 minutes. Second approach, assuming alien thinking patterns. Use the terrain depression as a concealment route for the main force while a small diversionary team drew attention from the high ground. When the enemy repositioned to counter the diversion, the main force would be in perfect position to strike their weakened flank. Time to completion, 23 minutes. Third approach, using only the tactics the Academy had taught so far. Accept that the enemy position was too strong to assault directly. Conduct a fighting withdrawal to draw them out of their defensive advantage, then engage them in the open where superior numbers could be brought to bear. Time to completion, 4 hours, assuming the enemy was foolish enough to abandon a superior position. Marcus leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. The worst part wasn't that his classmates didn't know these things. It was that their instructors didn't either. Commander Veltar was considered one of the Academy's top tactical minds, and Marcus had already spotted a dozen fundamental errors in his teaching. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Marcus glanced at his communication panel and saw it was from the Academy's administration office. Cadet Chen, please report to Dean Mordak's office at 800 tomorrow for academic evaluation. Standard procedure for all first-year students. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Academic evaluations typically meant they wanted to assess his progress and potentially transfer him to a more appropriate program. Given his consistently mediocre test scores, he had been deliberately performing at average levels to avoid attention. They probably thought he was struggling. The irony was bitter. If they knew what he was really capable of, they would either kick him out as a security risk or demand explanations that Earth's government wasn't ready to provide. Humanity's true military capabilities were still classified information. The Galactic Council believed humans were enthusiastic but inexperienced fighters, good for grunt work but not strategic planning. It was better that way, Marcus reminded himself. Humanity needed time to understand the galactic political landscape before revealing their true nature. And Marcus needed time to learn how other species thought about warfare, to understand their weaknesses and blind spots. He closed his tactical analysis and opened his official coursework instead. Tonight, he would review the Academy's approved solutions to today's scenario, memorizing the acceptable answers that would earn him passing grades without standing out. Tomorrow, he would sit in Dean Mordak's office and pretend to be just another average human cadet who needed guidance to understand the complexities of galactic warfare. He would nod respectfully at suggestions that made his teeth ache, accept remedial tutoring that would teach him things he had known since he was 16, and continue his masquerade as a nobody. But first, he allowed himself one moment of honest assessment. Marcus pulled up the Academy's database of historical conflicts and began searching for any battle where the accepted galactic solution would have failed against a competent human commander. Within 20 minutes, he had found 43 examples. Marcus closed the tablet and prepared for another day of pretending to be less than he was. In the darkness of his room, surrounded by beings who thought they understood warfare, humanity's greatest tactical mind practiced looking confused by basic military concepts. Outside his window, the Academy's multiple moons cast complex shadows across the training grounds, where tomorrow's elite officers would learn tactics that would get them killed in any real war. Marcus Chen smiled grimly and went to sleep, dreaming of battles that would never be fought the way his instructors expected. Dean Mordak's office was impressive in the way that all Raxilian spaces were, everything built to showcase their species' love of geometric perfection. The eight-limbed administrator sat behind a crystalline desk that seemed to grow from the floor itself, his four eyes studying Marcus with what might have been concern. "Cadet Chen, please sit," Mordak said, his translator converting the harmonic tones of his native language into standard galactic common. "I trust your first semester has been educational?" Marcus settled into the chair, keeping his expression neutral. "Yes, sir. The Academy has been very informative." "Indeed." Mordak manipulated several holographic displays with different hands, calling up Marcus's academic record. "Your performance has been consistent, neither exceptional nor concerning. Your test scores place you precisely in the middle of your class. I've been working hard to understand the material, sir. I'm sure you have." Two of Mordak's eyes continued reading while the other two focused on Marcus. "However, your instructors have noted something unusual. You never ask questions during lectures, never seek clarification on complex topics, and rarely participate in tactical discussions. This is atypical for human students." Marcus had prepared for this conversation. "My species learns differently than others, sir. I prefer to process information internally before speaking." Mordak's primary hands steepled while his secondary hands continued working. "Tell me, Cadet Chen, what do you think of Commander Veltar's teaching methods?" The question felt like a trap. Marcus chose his words carefully. "Commander Veltar is very knowledgeable. He has extensive experience in galactic military history." "That's not what I asked." Mordak leaned forward slightly. "I asked what you think of his methods." Marcus hesitated. This was dangerous territory. "I find his approach thorough, sir." "Cadet Chen, may I speak frankly?" "Of course, sir." "In my 40 years at this academy, I have never encountered a student quite like you. Your written work demonstrates adequate comprehension of basic concepts, yet something about your responses suggests deeper understanding that you're not sharing. Your simulation exercises show competent but unremarkable performance, yet other cadets have mentioned that you seem to anticipate developments before they occur." Marcus felt his pulse quicken, but kept his expression steady. "I'm not sure what you mean, sir." Mordak activated another display, this one showing video footage from the previous week's group exercise. This simulation placed your team in command of a defensive position against overwhelming odds. Watch! On the screen, Marcus saw himself standing slightly apart from his teammates as they debated their response to the attacking force. Kixara was suggesting they spread their defenses evenly across all approaches. Torvin wanted to concentrate everything at the strongest choke point. Jixnal advocated for an immediate counterattack. In the recording, Marcus remained silent for most of the discussion. But when Kixara finally asked for his opinion, he had suggested a compromise. Reinforce the obvious choke point as Torvin wanted, but leave it only lightly manned. Instead, position the main force in a concealed secondary position where they could strike the enemy's flank after they committed to the assault. The plan had worked perfectly. The attacking force, controlled by senior cadets, had done exactly what Marcus predicted. They concentrated their assault on the reinforced choke point, broke through it easily, and advanced confidently into the kill zone where Marcus's team was waiting. Your team achieved the highest score in that exercise, Mordak noted. The attacking force called it an impossible defense and requested a review to ensure the parameters were correct. We got lucky, sir. Did you? Mordak's voice carried a note of skepticism. Or did you recognize something that your teammates missed? Marcus said nothing. Let me show you something else. Another display activated, this one showing a complex star chart. This is the current situation in the Kepler sector. The Thexmari Confederation has been making aggressive moves toward Council space. Our intelligence suggests they may be planning a major offensive. The star chart showed typical alien military thinking. Linear supply lines, obvious staging areas, and predictable patrol patterns. Marcus could see at least 6 ways the Thexmari could outmaneuver the Council's defensive preparations, but he forced himself to study it as if seeing it for the first time. What do you see? Mordak asked. The Council has strong positions protecting the major systems, Marcus replied carefully. The Thexmari would have difficulty mounting a direct assault. Yes, that's the conventional assessment. But suppose you were commanding the Thexmari forces. How would you approach this situation? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus realized that this entire meeting had been leading to this moment. Mordak suspected something, but wasn't sure what. I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that, sir. That's way beyond anything we've studied. Humor me, Mordak said softly. Pretend you're in an advanced tactics course. How would you advise the Thexmari to proceed? Marcus looked at the chart again, weighing his options. He could continue playing dumb, but Mordak was clearly too intelligent to fool indefinitely. On the other hand, revealing his true capabilities could have serious consequences. Well, Marcus said slowly, if I had to guess, maybe they could use the asteroid fields here to mask their approach. The Council sensors might not detect ships hiding among the rocks. It was a kindergarten-level suggestion compared to what he was really thinking, but it was slightly more advanced than what most first-year cadets would propose. Mordak's eyes glittered with interest. Continue. And maybe, instead of attacking the obvious targets, they could go after the supply stations? If they cut off the Council's logistics, they wouldn't need to fight the strong defensive positions directly? Interesting. Mordak manipulated the display, highlighting the routes Marcus had suggested. These are both valid tactical considerations. Tell me, where did you learn to think about supply lines? That's typically a third-year topic. Marcus realized he had made a mistake. I read ahead sometimes. Military history is interesting to me. I see. Mordak sat back, his 4 hands now motionless. Cadet Chen, I'm going to make you an offer. There's a special program at this academy, one that most students never hear about. It's for cadets who show exceptional potential, but may not fit the standard educational model. What kind of program? Advanced tactical studies, small groups, accelerated curriculum, direct access to real operational data. Mordak paused. It would mean leaving your current class and working with much more challenging material. Marcus felt trapped. Accepting would mean more scrutiny, more opportunities to reveal what he was hiding. But refusing might create even more suspicion. I'm honored by the offer, sir, but I'm not sure I'm ready for advanced work. I still struggle with the basics sometimes. Do you? Mordak activated one final display, this one showing a detailed analysis of Marcus's performance. According to our monitoring systems, your biometric responses during tactical exercises suggest you reach conclusions significantly faster than your verbal responses indicate. Your eye movement patterns show you're analyzing multiple variables simultaneously, even when you claim to be confused. The blood drained from Marcus's face. They had been watching him more closely than he realized. Additionally, Mordak continued, we've run psychological profiles on all our human cadets to better understand your species' learning patterns. Yours shows anomalies consistent with someone who has extensive prior military experience. Marcus remained silent, knowing that anything he said now could make the situation worse. Cadet Chen, Earth's integration into the Galactic Council has been remarkable, but we're not naive. We know that younger species often have hidden depths. Some of our best officers have come from worlds that initially seemed unremarkable. Sir, I'm not asking you to reveal classified information, Mordak interrupted. Earth's military capabilities are Earth's business. But I am asking you to consider the possibility that you might serve both your species and the Council better by accepting appropriate challenges. Marcus stared at the star chart, seeing dozens of tactical possibilities that his instructors couldn't imagine. The Thexmari situation was actually far more dangerous than the Council realized, but not for the reasons anyone expected. If I agreed to this advanced program, he said carefully, what would be expected of me? Honest assessment of tactical situations, genuine participation in strategic discussions, and perhaps most importantly, help us understand how human military thinking differs from galactic norms. It was a reasonable request, and Marcus realized he was facing a choice that would define the rest of his time at the Academy. He could continue his masquerade, learning nothing new while contributing nothing valuable. Or he could take the risk of partial revelation and actually make a difference. Can I think about it? Of course, but Cadet Chen. Mordak's voice carried a note of warning. The offer won't remain open indefinitely, and there are others who have noticed your unique perspective. Not all of them are as patient as I am. Marcus left the meeting with his mind racing. As he walked through the Academy's halls, he noticed things he had previously ignored. The placement of security cameras, the patrol patterns of the administrative staff, the subtle way certain students and instructors watched him. He wasn't just hiding his abilities from his classmates anymore. He was part of a much larger game, one where the stakes were higher than he had realized. That evening, Marcus activated a quantum-encrypted communication channel to Earth. For the first time in months, it was time to contact his real superiors and report that his cover might be blown. But first, he had one more thing to do. Marcus pulled up the Thexmari tactical situation and began a real analysis. If he was going to be forced into the open, he might as well start with something that could save lives. Within 2 hours, he had identified the Thexmari's actual strategy, and it was far more sophisticated than anyone at the Academy suspected. The emergency alarm that woke Marcus at 0347 hours wasn't part of any drill. The Academy's communication systems crackled with urgent transmissions as students stumbled from their dormitories, confused and half-dressed. Through his window, Marcus could see ships rising from the planet's surface. Real warships, not training vessels. All cadets report to Primary Assembly Hall immediately, came the announcement. This is not a drill. Academy is now operating under Condition Red protocols. Marcus dressed quickly, his mind already racing through possibilities. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. Less than 24 hours after his conversation with Dean Mordak about the Thex Mari situation, and suddenly the Academy was on emergency alert. In the assembly hall, hundreds of cadets from dozens of species clustered together in nervous groups. The atmosphere was charged with fear and confusion. Marcus spotted Kixara near the front, her blue skin pale with worry. Torvin stood like a stone monument, but even his stoic demeanor showed cracks. Dean Mordak strode onto the platform, flanked by senior Academy staff and several officers Marcus didn't recognize. Their uniforms marked them as active Council Fleet personnel. "Cadets!" Mordak's voice boomed across the hall. 47 minutes ago, Thex Mari forces launched a coordinated assault on Council positions in the Kepler sector. Initial reports indicate they have achieved complete tactical surprise and are advancing on multiple fronts. Murmurs of shock rippled through the assembly. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. This was exactly what he had predicted in his analysis the night before. "The situation is developing rapidly," Mordak continued. "Council Fleet Command has requested immediate support from all available resources, including advanced Academy personnel. Effective immediately, all 3rd and 4th year cadets are being mobilized for active duty." More shocked voices. Several alien cadets looked ready to faint. However, Mordak's eyes swept across the crowd. "We have also received authorization to accelerate certain exceptional individuals into combat support roles, regardless of their current academic year." Marcus knew what was coming before the dean's gaze found him. "The following cadets will report for immediate tactical assessment and potential deployment: Vextai Mordesh, Klikrath Uzven, Torvin Korvash, and Marcus Chen." The hall erupted in whispers. Being selected for early deployment was theoretically an honor, but under these circumstances, it felt more like a death sentence. Marcus rose with the others, ignoring the stares of his classmates. As they were escorted from the assembly hall, Kixara caught his arm. "Marcus, be careful out there, okay? You're one of the few humans I've gotten to know." He nodded, touched by her genuine concern. "I'll be fine. You stay safe here." The selected cadets were led to a secure briefing room where a holographic display showed the current tactical situation. It was worse than Marcus had feared. The Thex Mari hadn't just achieved surprise, they had completely outmaneuvered the Council's defensive preparations. Fleet Admiral Kethva, a imposing Draxinian with scales like polished metal, addressed the group. "Cadets, what you're about to see is classified at the highest levels. The Thex Mari have demonstrated tactical capabilities that exceed all previous intelligence assessments." The display zoomed in on specific battle zones. Marcus watched in growing horror as he recognized his own predictions playing out in real time. The asteroid field approach, the logistics attacks, even the feint toward the outer systems. Everything he had identified as possibilities was actually happening. "Our fleet commanders are struggling to counter strategies they've never encountered before," Admiral Kethva continued. "The enemy appears to be thinking several moves ahead, anticipating our responses and exploiting weaknesses we didn't know existed." Cadet Vextai, a promising Zalithian tactical student, raised a crystalline hand. "Admiral, how is this possible? The Thex Mari have never demonstrated this level of strategic sophistication." "That's what we need to determine." The Admiral's attention turned to Marcus. "Cadet Chen, Dean Mordak informs me that you may have unique insights into unconventional tactical thinking. Is there anything about this situation that seems familiar to you?" Marcus felt the weight of every eye in the room. This was the moment of decision. Continue hiding and watch the Council forces get slaughtered, or reveal what he knew and face the consequences. "Sir," Marcus said slowly, "may I ask what specific tactics the Thex Mari are using?" Admiral Kethva manipulated the display, showing detailed battle reports. "Multi-axis approach vectors designed to fragment our response, targeted strikes against supply infrastructure, coordination of feints with main assaults, and most critically, they seem to be predicting our counter-moves with impossible accuracy. Marcus studied the data, his heart sinking. It wasn't just that the Thex Mari were using advanced tactics. They were using human tactics, executed with precision that suggested professional military consultation. "Admiral," Marcus said carefully, "has anyone considered the possibility that the Thex Mari might have external advisors?" "What do you mean?" "Some of these strategies are very sophisticated. More sophisticated than the Thex Mari have ever demonstrated before. If they suddenly have access to tactical knowledge they didn't possess previously, there might be a third party involved." Admiral Kethova's scales shifted color, a sign of intense concentration in his species. "Are you suggesting they have allies we don't know about?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "I'm suggesting that these tactics demonstrate a level of strategic thinking that typically takes generations to develop. Either the Thex Mari have been hiding their true capabilities for centuries, or someone has been teaching them." Dean Mordak stepped forward. "Cadet Chen, you seem to understand these tactics remarkably well. Could you explain how you recognize them?" The room fell silent. Marcus realized that his moment of truth had arrived. He could deflect the question, continue his masquerade, and watch the Council forces walk into trap after trap, or he could take the risk and potentially save thousands of lives. "Because they're human tactics," Marcus said quietly. The statement hit the room like a physical blow. Several cadets stepped backward. Admiral Kethova's scales turned deep red, a color Marcus had learned indicated either rage or shock. "Explain," the Admiral commanded. Marcus took a deep breath. "Every strategy the Thex Mari are using appears in human military doctrine. The multi-axis approach is based on something we call maneuver warfare. The logistics targeting follows principles we've been using for centuries. The predictive counter-moves suggest they understand human strategic thinking." "How could you possibly know this?" Vextai demanded. "Humans are new to galactic warfare." "Humans are new to galactic warfare," Marcus corrected. "We're not new to warfare." He moved to the tactical display and began highlighting specific elements. "This feint toward the outer systems, it's designed to make you think they're going for resource capture, but it's actually forcing you to divide your forces. When you respond by reinforcing the outer systems, they'll strike at the center with overwhelming force." Admiral Kethva stared at the display. "How certain are you of this assessment?" "Very certain. Because if I were commanding the Thex Mari forces, that's exactly what I would do next." The admission hung in the air like an explosive charge. Dean Mordak stepped closer to Marcus, his 4 eyes studying him intently. "Cadet Chen, what exactly is your background?" Marcus realized there was no point in lying anymore. 8 years as a tactical consultant for Earth Defense Command. I've designed strategies for everything from small unit actions to fleet-level engagements." "And how old are you?" Admiral Kethova asked. 25. The room erupted in shocked voices. The concept of a 25-year-old with 8 years of tactical experience was incomprehensible to species that typically spent decades in preliminary military education. "That's impossible," Torvin rumbled. "You would have started military service as a child." "Humans start learning warfare early," Marcus replied grimly. "We've been fighting each other for our entire recorded history. By the time most species develop space travel, we'd already perfected every form of combat imaginable." Admiral Kethva silenced the room with a gesture. "If you understand these tactics so well, can you counter them?" Marcus studied the tactical display again, running calculations in his head. The situation was bad, but not hopeless. The Thex Mari were using human strategic concepts, but they were implementing them with alien tactical assumptions. There were gaps in their approach that a human commander would never leave open. "Yes," he said finally, but it would require abandoning standard council military doctrine completely. You'd have to fight like humans fight. And how do humans fight? Dean Mordak asked. Marcus turned to face the room full of alien officers and cadets who had spent months watching him struggle with what they considered basic concepts. Humans fight to win, not to demonstrate tactical brilliance, not to minimize casualties, not to preserve infrastructure. We fight to win, and we use whatever methods accomplish that goal most efficiently. Give me specifics, Admiral Kethva demanded. Marcus moved to the tactical interface and began manipulating the display. First, stop trying to protect everything. The Thexmari are counting on you spreading your forces thin. Abandon the outer systems entirely and concentrate everything at the choke point here. He highlighted a star system that seemed tactically insignificant. Sir, Vextai protested, that system has minimal strategic value. Exactly, which means the Thexmari won't expect you to make a stand there. More importantly, it's positioned so that whoever controls it can threaten their main supply line. Marcus continued his analysis, explaining how to turn the Thexmari's own tactics against them. Instead of reacting to their moves, the Council forces should force the enemy to react to unexpected threats. Instead of defending static positions, they should use mobile forces to strike where the Thexmari were weakest. This plan would work, Admiral Kethva said slowly, but it requires tactical coordination beyond what our current command structure can achieve. Then change the command structure, Marcus replied. Give field commanders more autonomy. Let them adapt to local conditions instead of waiting for orders from Central Command. That's not how we do things, the Admiral protested. It's how humans do things, Marcus countered. And right now you're fighting an enemy who thinks like humans. Dean Mordak had been silent throughout the exchange, but now he stepped forward. Admiral, I recommend we implement Cadet Chen's suggestions immediately. We can debate the implications later. Admiral Kethva stared at the tactical display for a long moment. Finally, he activated his communication system. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Kethva. I'm transmitting new tactical directives for immediate implementation. Authorization code Omega-7 Alpha. As the orders went out, Marcus felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. His secret was out, his masquerade was over, and he had no idea what consequences would follow. But for the first time since arriving at the academy, he was finally able to use his true abilities to make a difference. The next few hours would determine whether human tactical thinking could save the Council forces or whether Marcus had simply delayed an inevitable defeat. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of in war. And Marcus Chen, the quiet cadet who had spent months pretending to struggle with basic tactics, was about to show them why Earth had never lost a war it was determined to win.